r/AskReddit. What is the most terrifying thing you've ever experienced while home alone? When I was young, I came home from a party in the middle of the night when my dad were out of town. I started making a midnight quesadilla when I heard someone cough in the basement. I yelled and ran outside, and they took off through the backyard. Come to find out, my dad's ex-girlfriend's daughter stole her key to our house and came to rob us. She was busted a couple years later doing this to her sister-in-law. How were the midnight quesadillas? They thankfully didn't burn. The cheesy goodness was the best thing to combat the slight trauma. Somebody tried to break into the house while I was by myself. The whole place was quiet and dark at nighttime. I walked past the front door to go upstairs for bed, and the handle suddenly started jerking around like the Hulk was trying to get in. Then whoever it was started to either kick or shoulder the door, and it was making the whole frame jiggle. I completely froze, and my mind went blank. Just standing there like an idiot and staring. My dog bolted down the stairs like it was her time to shine, scrambled on the tile, and let loose the most vicious barks I've ever heard. Whoever it was, left. Once, my dad left the door unlocked while he went to pick me up from school. My mom was sitting on the couch and heard the door open. She didn't think much of it because she was expecting us back, but then she heard the door bang open hard, and our dog bolted for the opening. Someone yelled, "Oh shit," and clattered down the steps. She didn't even see who it was, since by the time she got to the door, they'd cleared the fence, and our little shepherd mix was left barking furiously at the gate. He didn't even make a noise until they were already gone, just went straight to, "You're about to lose a leg" mode. I have been pretty fortunate, based on these comments, but I was home alone one night while my wife and son were visiting my mother-in-law. I walked back to our bedroom to see someone rummaging through my son's room on the video baby monitor. Immediately grabbed my firearm and yelled to the other side of the house, "I am armed. Come out slowly." Over and over while slowly making my way back to his room. Got there, flipped on the light, and nothing. Searched the whole house, pumped full of adrenaline. Finally satisfied I was alone, I went back to my room and the guy was back in the room. I took a closer look and I'm ashamed to say I was looking at myself. The camera is a live feed on our Wi-Fi, and it was steaming on a huge delay. I have never known it to do that, and it has not done it since. TLDR, went looking for myself, and came back empty-handed. This is a funny one. That would definitely be a heart dropped seeing the guy back in the room, after you 100% cleared your house. I seriously would have thought it was a ghost, and I don't even believe in ghosts. I was chilling on the couch, doing whatever, when suddenly a really heavy person starts sprinting in our attic. Sounded like steel-toed boots and everything. I'm a really small woman, so I immediately freaked out, thinking there's a gigantic man stomping around my home. Then the screaming starts. Literal ducking screaming, like something from The Exorcist, and there's multiple voices. I sneaked outside and cried, extremely shaken, and called the cops. Guess what's in my attic? Raccoons. Also, the raccoons were mating. That's what the screaming came from. I bawled to the cops about horny raccoons. I hope the cops were amused by the horny raccoons. They were really understanding and nice, and laughed the whole thing off. I'm still super embarrassed to this very day. I would piss myself too if I heard screaming in the attic. I don't have an attic. Years ago, a raccoon had crawled into my outside garbage can and could not get out. Meanwhile, I decided to take the garbage out before I went to bed. I didn't turn on a light because I'm a grown man and ain't no monster in the dark gonna scare me. But my garbage growled at me in the dark and I almost shit my pants. I went inside and turned in the outside light and saw the little guy. I tipped the can on its side and he ran off, and I bought some bungee cords to secure my can lid. I was about 21 or 22 and living by myself at the time, and I left my window open on a pleasant night. It was low enough to the ground that you could get in if you really tried, but the screen wasn't easy to take off, and I lived in a fairly safe neighborhood, so I didn't even think twice about it. Woke up in the middle of the night because I smelled smoke, and I reached out to turn on my lamp and my hand hit what was very obviously a person. My brain fully woke up at that point, and I realized there was a shirtless man in my bedroom, smoking a cigarette and staring at me. I remember yelling for him to get out, and I must have spooked him just as badly as he spooked me because he leapt out my window and took off. I slammed it shut and moved a bookcase in front of it, and when I went out the next morning in the daylight found the screen sitting against the house. Didn't sleep the rest of the night, and I haven't slept with a window more than cracked ever since. I also absolutely refuse to live on the ground floor of a building. I don't know if he was planning to rob me or eat me or both, but it was absolutely terrifying and makes me wonder how many times it happened and I didn't wake up. What the actual duck? Right? It was seriously one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I would have thought it was a sleep paralysis hallucination or something except for the screen. One evening an explosion at a petrochemical plant, located a mile from my house, blew out the double window in my living room while I was in the room. I definitely thought we were being bombed until I remembered where I live. I had just let my dog out to the backyard, and he was completely traumatized. For the following 2 months I had to carry him outside and sit in the grass with pieces of chicken just so he would potty. Explosion set reset on potty function. A few years back I was home alone during a power storm. I went into the bathroom to take a dump, and at the exact time I was shitting I sneezed. Well, the power went out as well. The house was pitch black, and I literally thought I shit myself blind. I couldn't see my hand, so in a panic I was yelling, "No, this cannot be true." I was in a panic feeling for the toilet paper to wipe and flush. After completing the task I just sat on the toilet trying to figure out how to tell everyone I know that I literally shit myself blind by sneezing while shitting. After about 2 minutes of complete darkness and red and panic, lightning struck outside and lit up my hallway. Best damn feeling ever. Congratulations, you sir have officially made me go into a laughing fit for a solid 5 minutes. Careful, you might laugh yourself blind. Not exactly alone, but I was home with my newborn son and someone knocked on the front door. I was expecting my mother, but she usually comes in through the garage. I thought it was strange, but yelled, "Come in." Because why wouldn't I? Then this cracked out old woman comes stumbling through the door and asks me for a ride to the nearest gas station. I told her I didn't have a car seat for my son, so I couldn't go anywhere. So she starts screaming, "That's just inappropriate," and doesn't stop, even when I'm telling her she needs to leave, or I'll call the cops. After a minute or so, my mother actually pulls in the driveway. The crackhead sees the car and bolts back out the door, and I never see her again. That night my truck got broken into. Can't for sure say it was the same woman, but I have her description to the cops anyway. That seems a little too suspicious to be a coincidence. There's a good chance that the homeless woman was the distraction while they robbed the truck. Probably it's even worse. Maybe she was trying to lure her out so other people can come in and rob the house. Something similar happened to my dad once. He was home alone and someone knocked on the door. He thought it was his friend, and he said, "Come in." Then he turned around and there was a random homeless woman sitting on the couch. When I was 19 in my first apartment I had someone knock at the door. I looked through the peephole and saw this burly, heavy-set man who abruptly started screaming to let him in. He was screaming things like he was going to beat my ass and kick the door down if I didn't open. I called the cops, and as soon as someone got on the phone he started body slamming my door to break in. I was freaking out and crying as they quickly had 5 cops show up within 5+ minutes. As soon as he heard the sirens he quickly walked away, and they met him at the bottom of the stairs. Apparently he was after the previous renter, but was extremely intoxicated. They arrested him, and thankfully he never came back. I ended up breaking my lease and moving out 3 months later. It was in a very nice neighborhood, but it quickly made me wish I was back home with family instead of being on the other side of the United States. My mom had something similar happen to her a year or so ago. She lives in a high-rise and all the floors look identical in the hall. A drunk man tried to get into her apartment and started yelling and screaming at her to let him in. She called the building security and they came to deal with him. He lived a couple of floors above her. I lit 2 long taper candles for some ambience while I was playing guitar late at night. I was facing the other direction looking out the window while playing, and shortly later turned around and went back towards the candles and discovered one of them was completely gone. The stand was still there, but no melted wax, just a bare candle holder, and the other one was still lit and no shorter than it was when I lit them. It was almost 3 AM and I was so terrified that I got in my car and left and drove to my dad's house. Neighbors were probably 1 candle short for their summoning, you know how it is. When I was like 14, I was home alone one night around 10 PM, stood in my kitchen making some cereal. It's dark outside, and then all of a sudden the loudest sound. Some drunk woman literally launched a hammer through my kitchen window. Was so loud and glass was everywhere. I followed her down the street whilst calling the police. Pretty strange. Edit for everyone asking why I followed. So the reason I actually followed her was because you could see really clearly through the smashed window as it was now wide open. She looked like a very fragile little old crackhead lady that could barely walk or see straight, and she started stumbling away mumbling some shit once she had done it. Plus I didn't really know how the duck I was gonna explain this shit to my parents if I didn't have a solid answer, haha. But yes, it was a very distressed walk whilst following her. Definitely an action caused by adrenaline too. One afternoon someone knocked at my back door. I thought it was the guy coming to read our meter, so I opened the door. Next thing I know, 2 huge guys pushed into the house, and one of them threw me up against the wall. Then they shoved me down on the couch. They told me they were Hell's Angels, and they were pissed because my boyfriend was selling too much drugs, cutting into their profits. They kept calling me by my next door neighbor's name. We had suspected they were selling drugs. All of the people stopping by for less than 5 minutes made it pretty obvious. I just kept telling them I wasn't her. One of them searched the house, while the other kept me pinned to the couch. They started to realize they were in the wrong house because they couldn't find anything where they were told it was. My neighbor's house is a single floor with a basement. My house is a 4-level backsplit. Then I showed them my mail because it showed my name and they knew they ducked up. They started telling me that they were after my neighbor's boyfriend. I didn't care, I just wanted them to leave. They robbed me of my cash and left. I now have locks on my screen doors. Damn, they got the wrong house and still robbed your ass. That's BS. I guess they didn't want to leave without something. When I was about 10 years old, someone kept ringing the doorbell for like 10 minutes. Was ducking creepy. Some of those church people can be very persistent. Excuse me sir/madam, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? No, but if you keep ringing my damn doorbell, you're gonna meet him. I was asleep at home alone. When I turned over in bed, I casually opened my eyes a little whilst turning, and they were shut again just as quickly. In that split second, I could have sworn I had seen a man stood at the bottom of my bed. I laid still, awake with my eyes closed, trying not to act like I was awake, and trying to listen for any sound in the room of someone breathing or moving. Couldn't hear anything. I was too scared to open my eyes and look, consoled myself that there wasn't any way someone could have gotten in without me hearing a window smash, and fell back asleep. When I got up in the morning though, the front door was open. They didn't take anything, and left no signs of being there. Was still very creepy though. I don't like this. There was an article I saw posted on Reddit where a lady used one of those snoring apps to record her snoring. After getting up, she was listening to it, then suddenly she could faintly hear two voices in the background. Two people were in her home while she slept, and she had no idea. This happened to me a couple of years ago. I have also lived on my own a long time, so do not get scared easily. I had just finished reading in bed, and I turned my lamp off and settled down to go to sleep and hugged my cat up close to me. This would be about 1:30 in the morning. I closed my eyes and I heard a voice say, meow, like imitating a cat. My window was open, so either it was just someone being weird outside. I opened my eyes, and in the middle of my bedroom was a small boy wearing a red jumper waving his arm above his head. I leapt up like a goddamn ninja and put the light on. And my heart was going mad. Now, nothing paranormal has happened in this house, ever in the entire time I have lived here. I spent the whole night totally freaked out, only getting a bit of sleep when it started to get light outside. My friends thought this was hilarious when I told them. I was saying there is no way I'm living in a haunted house, and started googling cleansing, exorcists and whatnot. The next few nights other weird stuff started happening. I started sleeping with the TV on, and as soon as I tried to get any sleep, I would hear freaky voices coming from it, or I would notice shadows dip by the side of my bed. It was dreadful. I actually resorted to saying out loud, "I'm really tired, so if you could not haunt me for one night I would be really grateful." I had never really believed in any of this sort of stuff before, so it was like an entire paradigm shift for me. Anyway, I was going on about this to my friends at work, and one of them asked if I was on drugs. Well, funnily enough I had just started taking this new tablet Montelukast for my asthma. When I got home, read the side effects, a rare one being hallucinations. Stop taking them, no more hauntings. Plot twist, the drug helps people see ghosts, and the drug makers during clinical trials chalked it up to hallucinations. Got a 5-channel sound system. Nothing too fancy, but the best I'd ever had. Watched a action film, and heard a creaking door to my left in the distance. I had to clear my home as I thought there was an intruder. Nope, just better stereo sound. This reminds me of the time when I was in the shower, all quiet, minding my own business, when suddenly I started hearing all these really loud crashing noises and grunts and sounds of men in pain/fighting, and just about jumped out of my skin, started rushing to get out the shower and get my towel etc. Turned out husband started watching wrestling and had forgotten that his phone, with him, downstairs, was still connected to the Bluetooth speaker in the bedroom next to the bathroom where I was. My boyfriend worked away from home a lot, and I always struggled to sleep on the first night he was away. On this occasion I was woken by the sound of a man shouting, and then someone banging on wood or a front door. I jumped up and looked out my bedroom window. Just in time to see a man dressed all in black walking through our garden towards the house. I ran to the front of the house to look out of the front window and make sure he kept going. He did, but he met up with another man, dressed in black, walking towards my house. I was terrified and called the police. They arrived in a matter of minutes and checked out the back garden, but they were gone. Turned out a neighbor had caught them both trying to steal his car, and one had escaped through the gardens, while the other had run through the roads, and they had met up outside my house. I didn't sleep at all that night, and my brother came to stay the next night. I'm so glad I live in an apartment now, much more security. I work from home, so I'm home alone a lot. One day I was working, and out of the corner of my eye I noticed some movement in my backyard. There was a man jumping over my fence into my backyard. Panicked, I call my then boyfriend, now fiancé, and tell him what is happening. While I'm on the phone with him, I get a knock at my front door. It's a woman from CenturyLink informing me that technicians will need access to my backyard. I tell her someone just jumped over my fence, so I think they are already there. Way to give me a heart attack, CenturyLink. Mayo, but why did they just decide to jump the fence? Auto jump was left on. I was living alone after my ex-husband moved out, and the creepy guy across the street, who was 20 years older and enjoyed drugs, kept trying to date me. He would harass me when I left my house or arrived home and would threaten to kidnap me. I had just started dating my current boyfriend and he helped hang up motion detecting lights outside. I started carrying pepper spray and leaving the alarm on whenever I was home. My boyfriend and I also agreed that if I didn't text him for a certain period of time and he couldn't get a hold of me, that he'd go to my house and check on things. I also set him on my work calendar just in case. It got so scary that my boyfriend actually moved in a lot sooner than we planned because I felt so unsafe. After creepy guy watched my boyfriend move in and saw him puttering around with project cars in the driveway, he stopped harassing me and moved away a few months later. I've never felt so unsafe in my own home, wondering if the outside lights were on because of the neighbor's cat or because creepy guy was trying to break in. Sleep paralysis. Waking up from a nightmare soaked in sweat, with a weight on my chest and completely unable to move. Sometimes I see shadowy shapes or feel there's someone watching. You sort of get used to it. I basically have a script that I repeat to myself, reminding myself that it'll be over quickly, not to struggle, and to focus on breathing. It's not as scary anymore, but it's always really unpleasant when I first become aware of it. My poor heart just slams away. A few years ago I was home alone in my basement playing video games when I hear the door that connects my kitchen to the garage creak open and slam shut, but I never heard the actual mechanical garage door open. Then I heard heavy footsteps of someone wearing boots walk the length of my kitchen directly above me. I originally thought, oh, my brother must have forgotten something, as he had left about 5 minutes before that for work, so I was about to yell up to him to make fun of him, but something in the back of my mind was telling me, hold on, something's not right here. So I muted my TV to both hear better and to stay quiet. Then I heard the footsteps turn around and walk back to the door, and again I hear it creak open and slam shut. But again I never heard the actual mechanical garage door open or close. So I slowly walk upstairs thinking maybe my brother just forgot to close the garage door. I slowly open the door to my garage and see that the garage door has been closed the entire time. The only two explanations I can come up with are either something paranormal happened or someone broke into my house, walked through my kitchen, and left without taking anything, while also not letting me hear them open my garage door. In my opinion, both are equally terrifying to me. Option C. Someone was hiding out in your garage. And maybe still is. Honestly, the biggest fear of mine is not someone breaking into my house, but me not being sure they ever left. I get auditory hallucinations when I'm tired. That's brought on by my anxiety. The one that caused the worst anxiety attack I would had in months was, just as I was drifting off to sleep, a guy yelled, "Hey," right into my ear, and I launched myself out of bed before realizing what had happened. This happens to me a lot, especially when I'm up late producing music. With my headphones on and my track playing, I can occasionally hear what I believe to be voices. It's very odd. Sometimes it sounds like a television in the distance, but I'll always turn all electronics off when I'm producing to avoid static and miscellaneous feedback. So this is interesting to read. It does happen sometimes when I'm heading to bed too. I wonder if I get them too. The brain does play tricks on you when you're tired, but several mental disorders can make it worse / more prominent. For me it's my anxiety, and I know AD can set it off as well. If you have anything like that, then that might be the case. A couple years back I woke up at 3 AM to see someone walk past my bedroom door. I called out in my just woken up, not thinking haze, thinking maybe my boyfriend had come over while I was sleeping, but got no response, so knew it wasn't him. Got out of bed, stupidly forgetting to take my phone or any kind of defensive item with me, and went into the front room, where the light was on, to be met with a random guy staring at one of the walls. I asked him who he was, and got no answer. At this point I'd actually woken up enough to realize I could really be in trouble, so ran back to the bedroom, grabbed my phone, and ran outside on the phone to the police, who showed up within a few minutes. Turns out the guy was mentally ill, and to this day neither myself or the police know how he got in.